Bible Archaeology Map. Top 14 Bronze Age discoveries. 14. Kfar Monash Hoard. Discovered in 1962 in Kfar Monash, Israel, this hoard of copper tools dates to between 3000 and 2000 BC and includes giant copper spearheads. The largest of these spearheads is 2 feet long and weighs 4.5 pounds. Also included in this hoard are 800 copper plates, possibly used for a giant suit of armor. Although Kfar Monash is in the general area dominated by the Philistines, it predates Goliath by at least 1,000 years and is more likely associated with the early post-flood giants described in Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. Goliath was likely a distant descendant of one of these giants. 13. Triad of Menkaure. Discovered in 1908 at the Valley Temple of Menkaure on the Giza Plateau in Egypt by American archaeologist George Reisner, the Triad of Menkaure dates to 2550 BC. Menkaure was the son of Khufu, who built the Great Pyramid in Egypt. The triad depicts the gnome Sesheshet and the cow goddess Hathor, who was worshipped by the Hebrews in Exodus 32:4. He took what they handed him and made it into an idol, cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. Then they said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." 12. Nippur Tablet. Discovered in 1902 in the ancient city of Nippur in modern-day Iraq, the Nippur Tablet is also called Eridu Genesis because it describes how the gods decided to destroy humanity with a flood. But the god Enki warned a man named Ziusudra, the Sumerian Noah, who survived the flood by building a boat. This story will be retold in the Epic of Gilgamesh, with even more parallels to the biblical story of the Great Flood. 11. Weld Blundell Prism. Discovered in the ancient Sumerian city of Larsa in 1906, the Weld Blundell Prism, also called the Sumerian King List, dates to between 2119 and 1800 BC. It mentions the Great Flood, Kish or Cush, the grandson of Noah, and Gilgamesh. According to the cuneiform king list, the Sumerian kings had long lifespans of hundreds and even thousands of years, providing an interesting parallel to the long lifespans of the pre-flood patriarchs recorded in Genesis. 10. Lugal Banda in the Mountain Cave. Discovered in ancient Nippur in the late 1800s or early 1900s, Lugal Banda in the mountain cave dates to between 1900 and 1600 BC. However, it was first composed sometime before 2000 BC. It mentions some biblical locations including Babylon and perhaps even Ararat or Arata, where Noah's Ark landed. 9. Enmerkar and the Lord of Arata. Also discovered in ancient Nippur around the same time, Enmerkar and the Lord of Arata dates to 1900 to 1600 BC and describes an epic confrontation between Enmerkar, king of Babylon, and the Lord of Arata. Enmerkar is linguistically similar to Nimrod, the biblical hunter whose empire included Babylon. Some have suggested that the Lord of Arata, or Ararat, may refer to Noah. While this interpretation is speculative, the description of Babylon as a major center of civilization at this time corroborates the biblical narrative. 8. Sinai 115. Discovered in the ancient turquoise mining region of Serabit el-Qadim in the Sinai Peninsula by Flinders Petrie and his wife Hilda between 1904 and 1905, the Sinai 115 inscription dates to 1842 BC, roughly the time when Joseph and his brothers had moved to Egypt. In 2016, Douglas Petrovich made a strong link between this Proto-Semitic inscription and the Bible when he published a translation which reads 6 Levantines, Hebrews of Bethel, the Beloved. Joseph's family immigrated from the Levant, and Bethel was their hometown. 7. Ibni tablet. Discovered in Hazor, Israel, this clay tablet dating to 1700 BC identifies Ibni, an Akkadian variation of the Hebrew name Jabin. Jabin is mentioned twice in the Bible, once in Joshua 11:1, identifying him as the king of Hazor, and another time in Judges 4:2 as Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. As these two Jabins date to 1400 BC and 1200 BC respectively, they were distant relatives of the Jabin identified in the tablet. 6. Sinai 361. Also discovered at Serabit el-Kadim is Sinai 361, a stone inscription dating to 1446 BC. Dr. Petrovich's translation reads, "Our bound servitude had lingered. Moses then provoked astonishment. It is the year of astonishment because of the lady." The reference to Moses by name is striking, as are the allusions to the Hebrew slaves and miracles in Exodus. The lady, Petrovich argues, is the Egyptian cow goddess Hathor, whom the Hebrew slaves worshipped with a golden calf. 5. Amarna Letters. In the ancient site of Akhenaten, known today as Tel el Amarna, Egypt, 382 clay tablets were found, recording correspondence with foreign kingdoms in the Levant. Letter EA290 reads, "From Abdi Heba, mayor of Jerusalem, to King Pharaoh. They are now attempting to take Jerusalem. Pharaoh has placed his name in Jerusalem forever. He cannot abandon the land of Jerusalem. Gezer, Ashkelon, and Lachish have given oil, food, and supplies to the Habiru." As these letters date to 1404 to 1340 BC, roughly the time of Joshua in the Bible, there's a strong possibility that they describe the Hebrew conquest of the Holy Land. 4. Berlin pedestal. The Berlin pedestal was not recovered in situ, but was purchased from an antiquities dealer in 1913. However, based on the style of the hieroglyphics and the content, Egyptologists believe it was created between 1550 and 1292 BC in the royal cities of Thebes or Memphis. It identifies Israel as one of the nations in the Levant, along with Ashkelon and Canaan, indicating an early exodus from Egypt in 1446 BC. 3. Thutmose's 3 scarabs. Discovered in Megiddo in the 1920s and 30s, these scarabs were used as letter seals by royal officials of Thutmoses III and date to 1481 to 1425 BC. Similar scarabs were found in Hazor, Beth Shean, Tel Kana, Gezer, Lachish, Tel El Ajul, and many other places throughout Israel. They indicate Egypt's strong connection to the Levant during the Bronze Age. Exodus 12:36. The Lord had made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and they gave them what they asked for, so they plundered the Egyptians. 2. Soleb Inscription. Discovered by the Swiss explorer Jean-Louis Burckhardt in 1813 at the temple of Amenhotep III at Soleb, Nubia, modern-day Sudan, the Soleb inscription dates to 1390 to 1352 and reads, "Land of the Shasu of Yahweh." The captured figures on the pillar frieze face north in the direction where they came from. Israel is north of Soleb, and more importantly, the only nation ever known to have worshipped a god named Yahweh. 1. Ipuwer Papyrus. Also called the Admonitions of Ipuwer, the Ipuwer Papyrus was likely written in Memphis near Saqqara around 1250 BC. It describes a series of cataclysmic events in Egypt, including the Nile turning to blood. Exodus 7:20. Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded. In the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, he lifted up the staff and struck the water in the Nile, and all the water in the Nile turned to blood. Bonus: the Curse Tablet. While still under peer review, the silver 1-inch square curse tablet was discovered near Shechem at Joshua's altar on Mount Ebal in 2019. Based on digital scans, the Proto-Hebrew inscription reads, "Cursed, cursed, cursed. Cursed by the god YHW, or Yahweh." Dating to 1200 to 1406 BC, this is the oldest Hebrew inscription and reference to the god Yahweh in Israel. When the Lord your God has brought you into the land you are entering to possess, you are to claim on Mount Gerizim the blessings, and on Mount Ebal the curses. Deuteronomy 11:29. Bible Archaeology Map. Top 14 Bronze Age discoveries.